Advocacy, support, education, partnership, collaboration. When written on a page or spoken aloud, these are just words. But when put into action, backed by effective program and dedicated people, they become the core of Preservation Massachusetts' mission to promote historic preservation across the Commonwealth. Since 1985, Preservation Massachusetts has been the statewide nonprofit organization that actively promotes the preservation of historic buildings and landscapes as a positive force for economic development and the retention of community character. 2011 was a banner year for advocacy, and partnerships were tested and strengthened by the challenges we faced. But forging ahead with a renewed dedication to our work, our program, and our partners and members, we look back fondly on 2011 and look forward to 2012 and its opportunities. Preservation Massachusetts has begun the next 25-year chapter in our history. Much has changed since 1985, as we all know. Preservation has grown and evolved as a movement and a practice, and we have continued to grow as well. In 2011, we still felt stable, but had to work to stay optimistic in challenging economic times. We operate lean and mean as we have for the past several years, a trend we still continue, but reality has forced us to accept some losses, specifically in our circuit rider program. Yet we continue to provide excellent program, services, and partnerships to all our members and preservationists across the state. As Mr. Wolf's quote so aptly describes, preservation is not just about the past, but about the future. And there is no more fitting embodiment of our collective future than the many educational institutions that call Massachusetts home. For our 2011 awards dinner on May 4th, we honored 21 colleges, universities, and preparatory schools with our Paul E. Tsongas Award. Schools from all over Massachusetts, from community colleges to private universities, were awarded on how historic preservation is an important component to the educational identity and how it can go hand in hand with education. Over 500 people filled the grand ballroom at the Fairmont Copley Plaza in recognition of these schools and their project teams. From master planning and stewardship to sustainable restorations, the awardees demonstrate the versatility, viability, and importance of historic preservation within higher education. Our 2012 dinner will celebrate 10 years since the conception of The Impossible Idea, a state historic tax credit program that would preserve buildings while revitalizing communities. This year, Preservation Massachusetts continued our role as a legislative leader for preservation initiatives at both the state and federal level. Once again, we traveled to Washington, D.C. to meet with our congressional delegation, sharing stories of preservation success and impact within their districts, and deepening our relationships with them, while broadening their understanding and appreciation for what historic preservation can do. Back home, we focused on ensuring that the State Historic Rehabilitation Tax Credit program remained in place despite difficult economic times. We also published our second economic review of the State Historic Tax Credit program, with a focus on jobs, revenue, and revitalization. The review found that $355 million in tax credit demand would leverage $2.86 billion in investment while creating over 15,000 jobs. Massachusetts also ranks number 2 in the country with the utilization of the federal historic tax credit, spurred on by the existence of the state historic credit. Our legislative agenda this year is focused on keeping both the state and federal historic tax credits in place and functioning as vital tools for both preservation and economic development. As our event season concluded and summer was around the corner, an unprecedented event set the course for the rest of our year. The June 1st tornadoes that touched down in central and western Massachusetts left a 39-mile swath of devastation in its wake. Though not the first priority in the immediate aftermath, Preservation Massachusetts knew that preservation would eventually be an issue and wanted to do something to assist those communities who sustained losses or damage to their historic buildings and landscapes. Almost immediately, our circuit rider Michelle Barker was doing reconnaissance tours of the impacted towns and surveying damage. Preservation Massachusetts utilized a Preservation Coalition meeting to bring together our preservation community, representatives from impacted towns, FEMA, MEMA, and other agencies mobilized after the storms. We also traveled to Munson and Springfield to meet face-to-face with locals and nonprofit groups and to find out what type of assistance they needed. Preservation Massachusetts wanted to find where we could be most helpful, and it became clear that our role as a conduit for information, combined with our knowledge of resources and the broader preservation landscape, was where we could make a difference. We knew that assisting these towns and groups would not be easy, and there was no quick fix, as our work stretched into the summer. From placing a call for volunteers to assist with surveying damaged properties, hosting 2 Ask the Expert days, and distributing countless resources in person and at FEMA assistance sites, to focusing our entire Most Endangered program on the tornado-affected communities. Our role in the aftermath was, and continues to be, a rewarding learning process. As a result, Preservation Massachusetts has found an enlarged role in helping to promote disaster preparedness for historic resources and hopes to chronicle our work and efforts into a document that can be used as a model for other states and organizations dealing with natural disasters. Though our Circuit Rider program appeared to be all consumed by tornado efforts this year, the program continued to bring great service and support to groups all across the state. 2011 marked the end of our initial funding, and combined with challenging economic times, Preservation Massachusetts had to scale back to 1 Circuit Rider position. We remain dedicated to this program that has transformed how we work with communities and the impact we leave behind. Since 2008, the Circuit Rider program has worked on over 270 projects in over 160 communities. Our Western Mass Circuit Rider Michelle Barker has tallied over 125 projects and community assistance calls, and she represents 191 towns with a population of over 2.2 million people. This program has allowed Preservation Massachusetts the ability to call ourselves a true statewide organization, with our own capacity to assist anyone in Massachusetts who is concerned with historic preservation and our shared heritage. Our work for this year is to ensure that the program is sustainable and reestablish our Eastern Mass Circuit Rider position, and making sure this program is available to you when you need them most. Preservation Massachusetts' other programs continued on in success as well. Our Most Endangered Resources program, focused on the tornado-affected communities, listed 9 resources in our effort to keep a statewide spotlight on the ongoing efforts to rebuild and restore, and the need to keep historic preservation in these conversations. Our fall event in November was held at the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, and our first event outside of Boston was a remarkable success. Our second annual Community Spirit Awards, also presented at our fall event, honored local groups that were incredibly active and dedicated to their communities in the wake of the tornado. We were proud to recognize the Springfield Preservation Trust, Monson Historical Commission, and the University of Massachusetts Amherst's Historic Preservation Graduate Studies program. As always, Preservation Massachusetts takes our mission as an advocacy and educational organization seriously. On a daily basis, we answer numerous phone calls, emails, and reach out to support our partners and members across the state. Here are just a few examples of what we've been doing across Massachusetts. We participated as a consulting party in the Section 106 process for the Mitchell River Bridge in Chatham, urging the Mass Department of Transportation and Federal Highway Administration to adopt a more sensitive option for the replacement of an historic wooden drawbridge. In the central Massachusetts community of North Brookfield, we have been helping a Friends group with their efforts to restore and reuse their iconic townhouse, which was damaged during Hurricane Irene. And in Fall River, staff participated in a charrette for the Central Congregational Church, helping to conceive reuse ideas but also making stronger ties and connections with the preservation community in that city. Looking ahead, 2012 holds much opportunity for Preservation Massachusetts, and we embrace the new year and new challenges ahead. Making sure that our lights remain on and our program in place is priority number one, and we wholeheartedly thank all of our generous corporate and individual members for your continued support. It is because of you that we are able to engage in our mission. We hope that you will continue to be a part of Preservation Massachusetts this year, as a member and a partner in our greater preservation community, sharing in the continual efforts to preserve our collective heritage for future generations.